So, what happens when you smash together a 250-year-old math theorem and, well, the total chaos of cryptocurrency? According to one source, you get a crystal ball that can predict the next big thing. Okay, that sounds pretty wild, right? So let's dive in and really unpack how they're making this claim. And this really gets to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? In crypto, what do you trust? Is it the hype you see online, the viral trends, the massive promises? Or is there a way to use cold, hard math to find, real value? It's the classic showdown, logic versus emotion. All right, so how do you even begin to do that? The source we're looking at says you need a specific framework, a special tool to cut through all that noise. Let's see what it is. And there it is. The secret weapon, according to this source, is something called Bayes' Theorem. Now, don't let the name scare you. The whole point, the core idea, is to use it like a filter. It's a way to process information logically, so you don't get completely swept away by all the hype and emotion flying around. Now, before we can see how this works with crypto, we've got to understand what this theorem actually is. But don't worry, you don't need a PhD in math for this. The source breaks it down into a super simple, common sense idea. Seriously, this is it. It's so simple. You just start with a belief. Any belief. And then, when you get new evidence, you just update that belief. That's it. It's not about being a genius who's right from the get-go. It's about being smart enough to change your mind when the facts change. You get a little less wrong with every new piece of information. So how does it work? It's basically a three-step dance. Step 1, you form an initial belief. And let's be honest, a pretty good starting point for crypto is, hey, most of these projects probably aren't going to make it, right? A little healthy skepticism. Step 2, you gather new evidence. And this is key. We're talking about real data, fundamentals, not just some random influencer's tweet. And finally, step 3, you update your belief. Based on that hard evidence, the odds you started with, well, they start to shift. So now let's get to the fun part. Let's actually apply this thing. The source uses a specific token as its case study, PZEN, or PZEN for short, and they lay out some very specific features of this token that they want us to consider as new evidence. So what is this so-called evidence? Well, the source points to 4 things that are literally baked into the token's code. First, there's a daily compounding yield. You get rewarded just for holding it. Simple as that. Second, the supply gets burned with every transaction. This means it's designed to become scarcer over time. It's deflationary. Third, the whole system is set up to reward patience, not just pure speculation, so it favors long-term holders. And finally, the wallet count is climbing. And that's not just a claim, you can see it on the blockchain. Okay, so we've got the theory, Bayes' Theorem, and we've got the evidence, these features of PZEN. Now for the most important part. How does the source actually connect these two things to make its case? This quote right here is the absolute key to their whole argument. The source basically says, hey, let's just think for a second. If a crypto token was actually going to be a long-term winner, what would you expect to see? Well, you'd probably expect to see things that encourage growth, reward the people holding it, and maybe make the supply more scarce over time, right? It just makes sense. And boom! This is the big connection. The source points right back to those features of PZEN. The daily yield, that rewards holders. The supply burn, that creates scarcity. Rewarding patience, that encourages long-term growth. You see what they're doing? They're saying the evidence for PZEN is a perfect match for what a winning token should look like. So let's bring it all back to Bayes' theorem. The logic goes like this. If you started out skeptical, believing this token probably wouldn't succeed, well, each one of these pieces of evidence, the yield, the burn, the growing wallets, should force you to update your belief. And in this case, you'd have to update it in a positive direction. The odds, according to this logic, are now getting better. And all of this leads us straight to the final and, let's say, very confident conclusion from the source. And they don't frame this as just their opinion either. They frame it as a kind of mathematical certainty. I mean, you don't need hype, you just need math. That's a pretty powerful line, isn't it? The whole argument boils down to this. Forget the noise. Forget what everyone's screaming about on social media. If you just follow the logical steps and look at the hard evidence, the math itself will give you the answer. And so here's the bottom line from the source. The math says, buy PZEN. Yep, after going through this whole Bayesian process, they claim the only logical conclusion you can come to is that this is a buy. It's a really bold claim, for sure, and it's all presented as the result of a totally rational mathematical process. But this leaves us with a really interesting question to chew on, doesn't it? The source treats these token features, the yield, the burn, as new evidence popping up. But these things were coded into the project from the very beginning. They're not a surprise. They're part of the plan. So is that really proof that the project is strong, or is it just the plan working exactly as it was designed to? It really makes you think about what we count as evidence in the first place.